Pastor Edgar Green of Eden Ministries would like to invite you to fellowship with them at their new location, located at 2900 Mary Meadows Lane, Keswick, Virginia. Worship services on Sundays at 11 a.m. and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Again, that new location is 2900 Mary Meadows Lane in Keswick, Virginia, adjacent to Stony Point School. Website www.eden-ministries.com.
All right, family, you're tuned in to In My Humble Opinion. Title of today's show, Life's Big Questions. Okay, I actually got this idea from watching Oprah's Super Soul Sunday, and she did a series called Life's Big Questions, where she asked, a group of people, it's very thought-provoking questions, and I said, hey, why not? Why shouldn't In My Humble Opinion do something like that? The first, also been a former guest of In My Humble Opinion, Rebecca Weybright. She's the executive director of Sarah. Andrea Copeland-Whitsett. She's an entrepreneur and the director of the Business Diversity Council. Jude Rogers, who is a very good friend of mine. I've known her since I was a very young girl, and she's been a friend. She's been a confidant. She and her husband are business owners. And so just a very special place in my heart. And she always has good information to share. And so I had her be a guest on the show. Mahalia Dryden-Mason. I actually met Mahalia when I was working for the Charlottesville Housing Authority, and she came in to do a seminar on fair housing. She works for the Department of Professional and Occupation Regulation. Davida Wingfield is also a guest of today's show, entrepreneur, and we actually met over grant writing. We were discussing that. That's what she does, one of the businesses that she owns. And then last but certainly not least is Nikki Giovanni, and we all know her as the author and the professor out at Virginia Tech. And so those women were gracious enough, and I thank them for being guests on our big questions.
Yeah, and Max, I was so delighted when you presented this to me, this idea, and the wheels immediately started turning.
Mm-hmm.
So I too started thinking about who to bring in for this. So a group of fellas that I decided to reach out to. Mm-hmm. One being one of the commentators on IMHO. Mm-hmm. Our listeners are familiar with Mr. Aaron Simmons. Mm-hmm. He's a financial advisor, and he's a jack of many trades.
Yep.
Those who have heard Aaron on the show know that. Also, B.A. Doe himself.
Chris Newman.
Right, Chris Newman show here on 101 Jams. Mm-hmm. That brother, born and raised in Charlottesville, and gave his insight like only he can, and really enjoyed speaking with him. Matthew Murphy, who's a project assistant here for the city, doing a lot for human resources here in our area. And he's also an ordained minister. To some folk, they know him as through that. Quinton Harrell, local business owner, been here for many years. Some know him as Papers. So we got to pick his brain a little bit on this. And last but definitely not least, another local business owner, Mr. William Jones. Got to talk to Will from over at In His Image Salon.
The first question for today's show is, what is the soul? All right. Thought about it. You may go to church and you think about the soul, but have you really ever asked yourself, what is the soul?
I got soul.
James Brown. First person that's going to answer this question is Aaron Simmons.
I think the soul is the common thread amongst human beings. Every human being on this earth has the ability and capacity to be a creator, whether that's creating something constructive or non-constructive. You can create a farm that could feed 1 million people, or you can create nuclear weapons that can harm people. You can create a cure for cancer or for HIV, or you can create medication that keeps people on it, or does not cure those diseases. Does not cure those diseases. You can create music or entertainment that's constructive and leads people to do constructive things, or you can create music and entertainment that leads people to behave in manners that may not be the most helpful. Every person is a creator, your soul has to direct you. You know, that energy has to direct you. And I think that one of the problems we have is that most people really aren't being guided by that energy correctly. Or whatever they're being guided by is not helping the planet at all.
The soul. The Bible tells us that man is created in the likeness of God in 3 parts. God is Father, Son, and Spirit, and man is body, soul, and spirit. The body is pretty self-evident. The soul is the creative center of man, his mind, his heart. But the spirit of man is what communicates with the eternal and with what communicates with God. And that is not awakened until we receive the truth of God, which is Jesus Christ. In John 3, Jesus tells Nicodemus that we must be born again in spirit and in truth. And that truth is him and his righteousness. And that is the way that we communicate with God.
That's a good question. You know, I think my initial thought goes to something from a spiritual sense. Of course, my baseline is Christianity, and so that's going to be the kind of the angle that I would probably speak mostly from or mostly to. But I think the soul itself is something that we all possess as human beings. I don't necessarily think that animals have them, right? But I think that the human beings have a soul, and many would believe that that's what lives on after this physical body dies. So there's a connection, an internal connection to eternity that goes beyond emotion, that goes beyond logic, that goes beyond feeling or senses. But it's a living spiritual. It's your living spiritual being, if you would. I think that, again, depending on your perspective, the soul continues on into eternity, which is what I believe. But I also believe that the soul impacts today. You know what I mean? The soul is beyond just eternity, but it actually we have an interaction with our soul in some capacity in this life as well. So it's who we are in many ways, and what lives on.
The soul to me is where it's where the seat of our emotions, our will, our intellect, where that is. I see the human body as a tripart being. We are a spirit that has a soul, and we live in a body. So how we're able to connect with one another has a lot to do with our soul. Okay. Because it's where the seat of our emotions are. It's, you know, how we're learning, and our intellect, and how we can even intellectually engage with one another and acquire knowledge is all has to do with the soul.
The soul in my lens it's like the skin around the spirit. It's the vehicle by which the spirit travels, right? So the soul to me is that the main connective piece to the Almighty.
Okay.
It's the piece, it's the organism that operates in this body that we have, that connects to the most spiritual things. That's why it's so boom to swing it back to what is soul, and, you know, think about soul music. So when you hear, or when I hear certain things that speaks to my soul, I hear that it comes from the source. It's coming from the main vein.
I think the soul is the deepest part of a person. I think that the soul is your conscience, your every emotion. And there was something that I would always tell my husband, that I loved him to the depth of my soul. And I realized how deep that was when I lost him. Because it felt like when I lost him, I lost part of my soul.
To me, what it means is it's the life force. Like, that's what is in us that gives us the ability to be here. Like, it is what is here. And think that is separate from like the breath that's in your body, like waking up and being able to breathe. Like I think that soul is separate from that. Your body could be in perfect shape and your soul be gone. So I don't know that the soul has anything to do with the vehicle necessarily, but I also don't know what to categorize it as. I feel like the soul is like a makeup of everything that you have been through in this life. And I think that it is the life. Like, again, that's why I think that it's possible it may be the same as your spirit. And maybe the soul is the memory bank for your spirit. I'm not sure how that goes because I don't feel like there's enough information that I have taken in that actually explains it in a way that makes sense to me. And I'm a very logical person.
Right.
While also being spiritual. So for me, it needs to be, I can say what I was told before, which is we are 3-part man, you know, soul, spirit, and body. And with those things, your soul is kind of, I think they share the same thought, like your soul is kind of like the heart of you. Like it is like what stores all of your life experiences and it stays connected to your spirit.
Next question on the list is, what is the definition of God?
But he's just the creator. Because everything that comes, everything that is here, from anything that you see was created from a human being, and human beings were created from this figure or thing or part of the universe that just made us all. I mean, he's the most, he or she, excuse me, he, she, or it. You know what I'm saying? But it had, whatever created us, has created us to do just all these different magnificent things. And I think that's the main thing, is that we all create things. Like you guys created this program and this platform. You know, somebody created machinery. Somebody created how to get water easier. But a lot of the things we managed them, but we didn't create them. Right. Sometimes we walk around, we act like we put water in a bottle. You didn't create the water, dude. You just put it in a bottle. You know what I'm saying? And I'm more impressed with the person that's created the water, not with the dude that put it in a bottle. And I would just say that the creator is just the truth, and it is what it is.
God is a triune entity. God is made up of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit.
Okay.
God has many, many attributes, and I would choose a few that sort of develops his character in my life. He is creator. He is omnipresent, which means that he is everywhere at all times. He's omniscient, which means that he is all-knowing. And he's omnipotent, which means he is all-powerful.
Okay.
And in my life, he is Father. Because of my personal journey, I am a adoptive child from South Korea.
Okay.
And before I knew of any father, I felt God's protection and promise over me. Before I knew his name, before I knew how to talk, before I knew my name, I just knew that I had someone looking over me.
Okay, and that kind of speaks to how powerful he is. I don't know who you are, what you are, but I feel you.
Absolutely. From the very core of my heart, I felt him. At that time, as I stated earlier, my spirit could not commune with him. In spite of me, I feel like God has chosen me. I because of my circumstances of feeling, rejection and abandonment, because I am adopted and my biological parents were unable or not willing to parent me. I just feel exceedingly blessed that I was able to relocate to a country that was much more accepting of me than the country that I was born into. In South Korea, women are not very valued, especially women of mixed ethnicities. And so since I was a product of American presence there in Korea during the Vietnam War, I was born and then placed into an orphanage and brought to America for the purpose of adoption. And I've definitely, not always, but I definitely feel that the blessing of that very much right now, especially with all the turmoil that's going on in my country.
Right.
My definition of God, man, is everything. Everything is God. The air, water, you know what I mean? Fire, pain, love, you know what I mean? Joy. Everything is God, you know what I mean? Even the bad, there's some God in that. Even with misery, there's some God in that. Like, I see people, you know, that go through real hardships every day, and somewhere within there's God. You know what I mean? You gotta find it one way or another. I wouldn't say I'm 100% a religious person. I've always been a kid that questioned everything. That don't make sense to me. What does that mean? Nah, I don't believe that. I need more than you just telling me that that's what that says for me to go on the rest of my life with that. Even though I'm still open-minded, I'm still like a sponge in certain areas, I will take, you know, information and take it with me the rest of my life. You know, with different religions, man. And, you know, especially like growing up in history books and stuff like that. In history class, a lot of it was about power. Anytime religion was spoken of in class, it was about power. Anytime that, you know, we speak about it today, in slavery, it's like, dang, religion might have been used to, like, you know what I mean, put a wall over our eyes. So to stay away from all that and to keep my brain from exploding, I stay spiritual, and I do find God in everything.
God is a good comedian. Sometimes you have to wonder what he was thinking about. Because he's really made this place kind of interesting.
Yeah. People say all the time that God has a sense of humor.
Yeah, he does. He's sometimes funny. Sometimes that funny don't make you laugh all the time. It's so funny it hurts. But, you know, he's a good comedian, and sometimes you wonder if we always call him him. You know, but when I think about it, he could be a she.
Okay.
And I think so because there's so many things going on, and that being has their hands in everything. But I think God is who the individual wants God to be.
Okay.
I believe there's a being, a supreme being.
Okay.
I believe that somewhere someone made all this. I also believe that the God that we think about is the God that was made by man thinking of what he is.
Okay.
So again, just like the soul, I believe God is an individual, an individual's view of what he is. I think we blame a lot on God, but I think a lot of what we do should be blamed on ourselves because we do it. He didn't make us do it. We did it. But there's a powerful being out there, and it depends on who you are, where you're from. You call them different things, but I do believe that they're all the same person, just different names that we give them.
Okay. Do you think...
With us is God, with the Muslims is Allah. With, every group has their own view of who that is. Even the Native Americans and the Native Africans, they have their view Because somewhere in our minds, we believe this just couldn't just happen.
Right.
Somebody made it. Yeah.
Okay. So there's no wrong idea of what God is.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Again, I think it's personal, and I think it's very wrong that people criticize others for their beliefs. Because just like we believe that ours is strong and we believe in what we believe, then we have to give the other person that same respect.
I see.
And not criticize them.
If God be in us, which I believe that every single human being here has God in them.
Okay.
And I think that is the soul. I think that is what has come from, wherever we come from. Mm-hmm. Like if we are, and this part I don't really know, but if we are somewhere, Christians speak to it like in the beginning was the Word and the Word was with God and the Word was God. Like we existed somewhere before as maybe these souls and spirits. Mm-hmm. And whenever we left that place and embodied, our souls embodied these vehicles that you see, I'm 5'8", I'm black, I got a beard, but my soul is inside of this vehicle. And I believe that piece of me has come from the Most High being the universe, being, some people talk about him as like Father. I like to think of it as everything that we are, Father, Mother, universe. Like I don't know what, another thing that I don't know for sure anymore. I don't know what God is anymore. But I believe that what is in us is from God. We all have God in us, and I would have to say that I think that soul piece or that spirit piece, maybe them connected together, is what is God.
You described God as the term, at least, or Jehovah, as something that cannot be expressed, something that we have a hard time understanding. So how do we pull something so abstract into our lives?
I think these two questions, the emotions and who God is, I think there's a parallel there. We are one person in three different expressions as well. I am Davida, the person, okay, and then I am Davida, the spirit, and then I am Davida, the soul. So I have a soul, a body, and a spirit. Okay. And I think that one of the great wisdoms of life that pervades throughout all cultures is the higher thought process of finding oneness within yourself. Now, your listeners may actually get great benefit of this, and they could even start today. Just by seeking to be in harmony with oneself, you find such a greater level of happiness. Mm-hmm. So when your thoughts and your feelings and what you actually do as a physical expression of those thoughts and feelings, when they all say the same thing, you find greater inspiration, greater wisdom, greater impact, greater prosperity. Everything is greater, and it comes so much easier. Mm-hmm. So then the next higher, or the highest, I guess, thing that we could strive for is oneness with God. And as we achieve that oneness, we actually understand him as a person, not as a person like we are, mm-hmm. but as a personality. So we come to know what God is thinking, what he's feeling, what he wants from us, what he wants from humanity.
Do you think he's part of us? Some people believe that. Some people refer to themselves as God-like.
I do. I am one of those God-like people. There are several instances mm-hmm. in the Bible
where we are reminded that we are God's little g. Okay. And so, yes, we definitely are supernatural beings. And so the goal is to come outside of the boundaries of our physical lives and become a supernatural expression of who God is. And I think that's what makes us so powerful. That's what makes us little gods. Don't take it too literally, because like, I'm trying to say something, but I don't want it to be taken out of context.
Speak your mind. That's why we have you here.
But yeah, that because we are little expressions of the big God.
I was thinking about that when I read the questions. I don't think God is necessarily a he. Okay. we start with that. And someone else mentioned recently, women hold up half the sky, and I think that's true. And I think God is something we're responsible for. Ourselves. We make a determination of how we respond to whatever we think God is, or whatever we think God would demand that we do.
Ain't nobody praying for me. Nobody praying for me. Ain't nobody praying for me. Nobody praying for me. Ain't nobody praying for me. Ain't nobody praying for me. Nobody praying for me.
With Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
I feel the presence of God when God is in all things. I feel the presence of God all the time.
I feel the presence of God early in the morning when I wake up in the morning. When I'm really on my dean, when I'm on my square, when I'm doing when I'm in that flow of doing the right things, taking care of my mind, my body, and my spirit. I feel him first thing in the morning, because it wakes me up at the same time every morning when I'm on point. Yeah. All right. So when I'm on my dean, I always allocate a quiet time, like a golden hour for myself to reflect on the day before and to prepare for the day that's coming. Right. And I do a lot of beating myself up on what I could have did better yesterday, how I could have interacted with somebody better yesterday, how I could have let that slide and passed up on that, or treated this person this way, blah, 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 right? But during that time is when I feel God's presence, and I always feel him any and every moment that I feel when I have just quick moments of thankfulness and gratefulness, right? So, and it can come as simple of every time I breathe, I'm real talk. Every time I breathe a breath, sometimes when I stop and think about it, I feel the presence of God, because I'm like, yo, this magnificent system has been created, and what if oxygen was just cut off?
Right.
Like, what would I do that next moment? You know what I mean? And it just humbles me. You know what I mean? And so I guess to answer your question, I can feel God at any given moment, on any given day.
Okay.
Of course, in my quiet time, in my times of prayer, sometimes when my husband and I are together, just those intimate moments where we're sitting, we're out together, we're walking, or we're sitting on our deck together, and I feel those moments of God. It's for me far beyond being in a church building, if you will, or a worship service, where one can definitely feel the presence of God.
What about the quiet times is it that makes you feel the presence?
What about it that makes me feel the presence? Well, because when I'm able to finally, Max, become still, I know that has to be the presence of God, because I know me. It's hard sometimes for me to just quiet the mind and quiet the body. And so I literally in my home have created a prayer closet, a closet where I go in and I have shut the door, and that's that moment where it's like, Lord, I need to feel your presence. And he shows up. And I know it because he can bring about a certain a type of peace that, as the word says, it's you just can't explain it. It's beyond comprehension. So it does something. It does bring about peace. I know for some it's hard to explain. How do you feel God? Well, you just do. Like yesterday when we were driving home from church and I'm looking at the trees changing colors, and I'm seeing all that vast beauty, and I said, that's just God. Right. And something just came over me, like, God, you're just so good. You know. So I thank you that I have the eyesight to see it, but that, you know, even when we're surrounded by so much evil, we can just look up to the mountains and see all those beautiful trees.
Feel them in the bad times?
Yeah. I definitely do, and it took me a while to realize that he's there, even if I feel like I don't feel him. He's there because he said he said in his word he is, and that's something where I have to believe he is. And you know, in looking back, Max, at some life situations, I know it was nothing but God that brought me through. At the time, I probably didn't feel it, but I know that it was him who was there. The sudden death of my mother. When I think about that situation, I know it was nothing but his presence that kept me sane when there were times I really felt like I wanted to go insane. Do I feel him in the bad times? Yeah. And you know, even what's been going on in our city, a lot of bad has been happening. But I had someone come to me one time when all that was going on and say, why do you seem so calm? Because I know who's in control. Right. I know whom I can put my hope. You know, because if I focus on them, I'll be worried, I'll be anxious, I'll be afraid. But I have to know that the God who said I'll never leave you won't leave. I have to know that that God does not abandon us in those bad times.
Because not everyone has experienced God or realizes that they have, and not everyone knows who he is. So do you believe that you have to call on God in order for his presence to be there, or is God there for everyone?
Well, because God is, I feel this omnipresent being, meaning he's everywhere. And whether a person calls on him or not, I believe he's there because the sun is shining. There are believers and unbelievers alike, but we still get the sunshine. We still get the rain. The things that God does, whether we're believers or not, we'll experience it together. God being the loving God that he is, whether a person believes in him or not, or whether they calls on him, I still believe he will be there for that individual.
I feel him all the time. But I'm going to tell you a little story about why I became so much a child.
Okay.
At the age of 2, my mother entered the hospital after having what would have been my little brother and losing him.
Okay.
My mother had issues with having children, and so they decided to do a hysterectomy on her. And when they did perform that hysterectomy, unfortunately, the doctor that did it cut into my mother's kidneys. So for 24 hours, my mother kept complaining that she couldn't void, yet no one listened to her. So after they realized something was wrong and took her into the emergency surgery, my mother almost died. She spent 2 years in the hospital. I want you to know I lived with my grandmother and my aunt because unlike what we see today, my grandmother, aunt, and my mother lived side by side. And so when my mom was in the hospital, I never had to leave my home. I was there at home, but I had my grandmother and my aunt and my cousins to help with me.
Okay.
Every Thursday, my grandmother's best friends would come to her house for prayer night. And Mrs. Lucas, was one of those ladies. And they would come over, and I was this little baby girl sitting between them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember my grandmother praying, and she would say, Lord, please help Muriel to come home. I don't want this child to grow with someone else. I don't want someone else to raise her. I want her mother to raise her. And they would pray over me, and they would pray over my mother. My mother got out of the hospital in 1964 in time for Thanksgiving. My grandmother died December 4th, 1964. My grandmother, the day of her death, I would always take a nap with Grandma every day. And that day she said in her Bajan accent, Molly, go outside and play. And I said, no, I'm supposed to be sleeping with you. She said, no, I want you to go outside. About an hour later, one of my friends came and he said to me, hey, Molly, go downstairs quick. Your grandmother died. And I said, no, she didn't. She was asleep. But I do believe that all those prayers, because my mother was at death's door. In fact, my mother described what death was like. And I've heard the same story repeated, so it's got to be real. Seeing the light, going through that tunnel. People in that tunnel saying to her, Muriel, it's not your time. Go back. It's not time. You've got things to do. And that, to me, was my introduction to God. My grandmother showed me that through prayer how powerful God's work it was.
We have altars today as Christians, because I want to reassert the fact Christian, because I believe that there is only one way to God, and that is through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Now, that's my belief, and everybody else has to find the truth for themselves. And so as believers, as Christians, we have different type of altar today, because Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice. So now we have worship, and so I feel God when I'm worshiping through prayer. That's the second altar. So I feel God when I'm praying and giving, and I am actually a consultant in the area of philanthropy. I work with nonprofits and celebrities and all types of folks. And so I find that giving is not just relegated to something that we do in church, but it becomes a lifestyle.
I feel the presence of God when everything is going well. Right now when the dog is sitting. But I think that whatever God is, it's with us, it's within us, whatever you think it is. And I think that it's unacceptable that other people try to impose what they think is God on other people. That, well, right now, the Trump thing, they're trying to say, well, this is what God demands that we do. And you have that fool, Pence, goes and, of course, he had planned that, putting his hand over his heart, and then he's going to leave the game and go someplace else. I don't think that that's God-like. I think that's the devil probably at work.
What is the purpose of the human experience? Let's hear from our guest.
Man, you just asked me the meaning of life, you know?
Yeah, what is the meaning of life?
Right.
You know what I mean?
But I surely am not qualified. No, I think, again, two different angles. One, if we take it from simply a human perspective, saying, hey, this life is limited, there's nothing after this, then I would say, then you make the best of your life now. Your purpose would be, but that being said, what is your best? Because that becomes subjective. So I could say from a strictly humanistic perspective, the purpose of my human experience is to become powerful, or to become wealthy, or to become famous, or to become comfortable, or to feel happy, or to be high, or to be whatever those things are. That becomes my goal, and that's the purpose of my experience, is to have and obtain and experience those things. But if I believe in a higher power, an eternal life, something along those lines, then I would have to say much of my experience then is a much of my experience in this life is a foreshadowing of what I hope to happen down the road after I died, after my soul continues. Meaning, will the life that I live garner me a reward or a punishment? And there's a hope there. And so my experience in this life, then kind of thought through through that grid, allows me to conduct myself in a certain way.
I think that a lot of it is just to make things better for those who come after us, or those who are with us and will come after us. I think it's really important. Sometimes I felt, when I was thinking about this morning, I felt like you sound like Pollyanna. But it's to really be helpful to others, to make the world a better place, to try in your best way possible not to do harm unto others. I think we really have to recognize that children are important, that people that we're in like a mentoring role with are important, that if we know something important, it's important to share that with others versus trying to keep it to yourself, because ideally we want to make the existence better for people.
The purpose of our human experience is to learn, grow, multiply.
Okay.
It's for the soul and the spirit to matriculate. Just like like when you matriculate through school, through college, you go through different degrees.
Okay.
So I think that we are on this journey. We got dispatched from the main source, and our purpose is to go out and to learn and grow in school. It's like I remember studying many years ago, and one of the words, it was I think it was a Aramaic or a Hebrew word for hell. was shoal.
Okay.
Which is real close to school. And that's what and basically that's what we're going through. We're going through school. We're trying to refine ourselves so that we can have these experiences and grow and be prepared and ready for the next phase in our journey.
Ooh, that's deep.
I believe, and the Bible teaches, that we are eternal beings. So the human experience is preparing me for my eternal existence. This is just a short part of my total existence, but it is a determining factor of where and what I will be doing throughout eternity. So if, just like any type of skill or any type of job that you have, you need to know what to do and how to build your strength and how to endure, and oftentimes the hard things in life builds strength. The sufferings, and how to get through those things, and how to look beyond those things will determine your perspective in and through eternity.
So I used to think that it was all about, like, I'm here to bring God to the earth. That's what I always believed from my Christian perspective. Now, I really, not much different, but I believe more so now that we are here to enjoy earth. Like, I believe that we are here to enjoy this place, like to enjoy everything that it has to offer. Like, this is home. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I can anymore hold to the idea of going to heaven, going to hell, any of those things. Like, this is where I am. This is what I know to be true. I don't know anything else to be true. So for me, the human existence, we should be here trying to enjoy this, like every day trying to enjoy this. And by default, because we're trying to enjoy this and it's so screwed up, we have to try to make it better.
Yeah.
And so the human experience by default becomes an attempt to make it better for our children and for our children's children. So I think that was part of my earlier belief also was to manifest the will of God on earth. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of like a Christian perspective. Now I just believe that we are here to enjoy earth, everything that it has to offer. And because humans have messed it up so much, we kind of take on some responsibility of making it better for our children. And so we work in that regard to make it better.
Got you.
So that kind of becomes your purpose. Like, you find what you can do with your hands to perfect humanity.
Right.
And you do it.
To learn, and to not repeat the same mistakes over again. To learn, to open your eyes, to not only see what's in front of you, but to see what's around you, what's above you, what's below you. And when you make mistakes, because we're all going to make mistakes, we have to be able to learn from those mistakes and try our best not to repeat them.
My class and I were talking about that today. You know, everybody's going to be born. Everybody who is here is born. And everybody who is born is going to die. So the human experience has to be to live, to do the best that you can while you're here. I think that too many people meddle with too many people. So I think that would be a good idea. The human experience would be to live your own life and to let other people live their own lives because you don't have anything to do with what they're doing.
Do you think we're called to some higher calling to fulfill while we're here?
I don't know. I think that's something that you have to decide. I don't think that's something I should decide. Oh yeah, you have a higher calling. I don't know if you have a higher calling or not. You know, you might be just lucky to be here, and a lot of people are just lucky to be here. That may be all. What they say, all. Some people want to, make a big splash. Other people don't. I think that's. Finish your sentence, Nikki. One of the things that has been interesting me lately, and I've been working on, it's going to be not forever, but a little while before I get to it. And essentially, it is called Those Who Stayed, because we who are black Americans are always, and rightfully so, very proud of the people who ran. We're proud of Harriet Tubman. We're proud of Frederick Douglass. We're proud of all of the people who made a big stance, and the world has said, yes, these are wonderful people. But we have to also, I think, be proud of the people who stayed, who got up every morning and picked the cotton or planted the tomatoes or whatever it is that they did. I think we have to be proud of the people who stayed. And I think that we don't give enough credit to those people, because these are going to be the people who are going to actually build the communities. They're going to build the churches. They're going to build the schools. Not that the other people didn't do things, but these are the people who stayed, never knowing how the day would go. Never knowing. As it is now, you never know. I don't know if you have a boyfriend or a father or something, but whatever you've got or whoever you never know when he's driving down the street that he's going to get home or he's going to get back, because we have the police acting exactly like the Klan, and yet we stay and try to make, and I think in our hope and in our I think hope is the only word. We are hoping that we who stayed are going to make a change. But we're just ordinary people who are making. The people who I had the pleasure of knowing Rosa Parks, and Miss Parks and E.D. Nixon made a big, no question about that. But we never see the story, and we should, about the people who walked. Miss Parks started something, and as well she should. I mean, there's no question about the NAACP and what they've done. I don't have any problem with that. But there were other people who got up in the morning and ate their breakfast and walked to work and then walked back. They still had to put in the same hours. They still had to be in the same field. They still had to do the same thing. But they too participated. And I think that somehow we have to give credit to the people who stayed, to the people who nobody says, wow, you did a great job, but they did.